Hello, welcome to NC Exclusive on News Central Television. I'm Gbenga Aborowa. My guest today on NC Exclusive attended the prestigious Fora Bay College, University of Sierra-Leone, and read English and Political Science. He also holds an MBA from the University of Westminster Business School in London, United Kingdom. He has a wealth of senior management experience in various fields, including aviation, mining, and port transport sectors, spanning over 2 decades. Until his appointment, he was a freelance organizational development and human resources consultant and played key roles as head of media for the Sierra Leone President Julius Maada Bio presidential campaign. He is also a senior member of the International Public Relations Association and a certified crisis communications expert. My guest today on NC Exclusive is Mr. Mohamed Rahman Swaray, the Honourable Minister of Information and Communications of the Republic of Sierra Leone. Nice to have you join us at NC Exclusive, Honourable Swaray. Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much. It's quite a pleasure being here, particularly after I missed out on the previous engagement. We're
happy to have you. Now, Honourable Minister, Sierra Leone has enjoyed relative peace and stability since the Civil War. Were you surprised by the turn of events on August 10th when demonstrators took to the streets to protest the high cost of living?
So we were that was a rude disruption of over 20 years of peace since we emerged from the Civil War in 2002. When the late former President Kaba declared the war officially over. So that was a very rude shock, and particularly coming fast on the heels of Sierra Leone's recent declaration as the 4th most peaceful country in the sub-region and the most peaceful in the Mano River Union. This was a rude disruption of what we had otherwise taken for granted. You remember Sierra Leone literally has been to hell and back. During our Civil War years, we have had our own fair share of misfortunes. So the transition from war to peace and peace consolidation has been one that the whole world has journeyed with us for. They respect us for that to an extent that we have been exporting peace by ensuring that our troops participate in global peacekeeping missions. So this was a huge reversal of an otherwise peaceful country. I have heard your framing. I heard you say it was a protest for cost of living. This is exactly where we have all gotten it wrong. This was not a protest for cost of living because Sierra Leone is far bigger than west part of the eastern part of Freetown, which are violently insurrected. It's bigger than just Makeni, just Kamakwi, and parts of Oloko. Sierra Leone is far bigger than that. That is not even 5% of the country. So imagine that was where you had the riots, the violent insurrection does not speak to it. Preceding that, you have had from social media players associated with the opposition calling for violent insurrection, calling for taking over of State House, calling over for the termination of President Bio's administration, calling for the takeover of Parliament. So this was a violent insurrection aimed at overthrowing the legitimately elected government of President Bio. I mean, we agree there are challenges with cost of living, but this is not peculiar to Sierra Leone alone. You live in Nigeria or wherever you live, things are not as they were yesterday. What is important is the efforts government is making to ameliorate the challenges on ordinary Sierra Leoneans.
Now, Honourable Minister, just like you said, President Julius Maada Bio also referred to those riots as insurrections. He said a forensic and independent investigation was to be conducted to unravel the truth. Has there been any updates on this, and has any committee been set up to look at the events of August 10th so that justice can be served?
Apart from, it was President Bio who first declared that the scale and magnitude of this violent insurrection is not Sierra Leonean. So therefore, it's too serious for silence. we will ensure we do a full-scale investigations, apart from the ongoing investigations by the police. So latest next week, I'm sure the terms of reference and the composition of that investigation committee would have been made public. Because we need to get to the very depth of this. We need to learn lessons from this. We need to draw a line under this. And like His Excellency has said, anybody who has remotely been associated with this violent insurrection by way of funding, by way of financing, by way of organizing, by way of unleashing this unbridled violence on an otherwise peace-loving Sierra-Leoneans will be made to face the fullest force of the law.
Now, Honourable Minister, like you said earlier, that it's not only Sierra Leone that is facing the global rise in commodities. Nigeria and so many nations in the world are also facing this. In the West, we've seen people come up to the streets to demonstrate the high cost of living. Sierra Leone has been through a lot since the Civil War, the Ebola crisis, and a lot of things that are not its own doing, like the global rising commodities now as a result of the Ukraine and Russia war. There's also the aftermath of the COVID-19 pandemic. There are people that are living in Sierra Leone that are finding it hard to cope. In Tanzania, for example, the government did give subsidies. Also in Kenya on certain products and tax breaks. What's the Sierra Leonean government doing to mitigate the harsh effects of this rising commodities to make life easy for ordinary Sierra Leoneans?
Yeah, I mean, this was a government voted very popularly by the people of Sierra Leone. So everything we do, we put the people at the heart and center of it. You remember Sierra Leone currently has a free quality education program on which we spend about 22% of our national budget. We also ensure that there are school buses, which are heavily subsidized. There are school meals in many parts of the country. By early next year, would have included Western Rural District. So comprehensively making it effective in all parts of the country. We also supply core textbooks. All of this, we believe, will help ameliorate the challenges parents face. But apart from that, when COVID struck, government through the central bank opened a direct credit line of about $50 million to support importers of basic essential commodities at a single-digit interest rate. This is unprecedented. This was to ensure that we did not run short of basic essential commodities. I mean, on social media and on other platforms, we saw long unending queues in many parts of West Africa for basic essential commodities. Sierra Leone did not have to experience that because the government was clairvoyant, we were proactive to have set the necessary mechanisms in place. Apart from that, we have also launched what we call the Munafa program, the Munafa Fund. This is a microcredit program that empowers small, medium enterprises. I mean, and that is done across party lines, I mean, to Sierra Leonean businesses to keep them buoyed up, to keep them active and alive. Again, during COVID, because the service sector was one of the hardest hit, government paid 3 months' salaries to all hotel workers. We did tax deferrals for hotels and entertainment centers so that they could not close down, which will have implications on.
And these are private businesses, I presume.
Yes, because in many countries around the world, it is the private sector that really creates many of the jobs. We did not want them to fold up with attendance redundancies, and which would further hit already hard hit families. So we buoy them up, we defer taxes, and in the case of those employees who were at risk, we pay 3 months' salaries to each and every hotel worker, just to keep the economy afloat. Again, beyond that, during the periods that we occasionally locked down, we did direct cash transfers to the poorest of the poor and to those living with disabilities, just to ensure that, because we know this is a population that literally live by the day from what they earn, from whatever activity they undertake. So because we are locking them down, we ensure that we did direct cash transfers to them to ameliorate the situation. Again, we ensured we did direct cash transfers to market women, small and medium market women, to keep their businesses afloat. All of these are geared towards cushioning the impact and effect of the global economic challenges on our people. Again, I mentioned we have been able to subsidize fuel as at June this year, we had expended about 286 million leones on fare subsidies alone. I mentioned the $50 million direct credit line to importers, and also we have removed taxes and all kinds of government levies on basic essential commodities like rice, oil, and reduced corporation and other taxes. All of this is to ensure that our people do not get very hard hit.
Now, Honourable Minister, just to follow up on what you just said, you've mentioned quite a lot of laudable initiatives and quite unprecedented, because in countries that even earn more, we didn't see the government mitigate that sort of, take those sort of steps to help alleviate the sufferings of the people as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, this year makes 4 years since the administration of Julius Maada Bio took office, and you've been quite an integral part of it. How would you rate the performance of the Sierra-Leone People's Party, SLPP, and has the administration done enough to deserve a second term in office next year?
So you asked me, context matters. We have done a lot more than any other government would have done in the same circumstance. Let's go to the figures. Let's go to brass tacks. I did mention our introduction of an ambitious free quality education program that now sees over 2.6 million kids back in school, most of them benefiting from school meals, a government paying all public examination fees for them. We have also, we have done that, right? So that's number one. You come to administrative and legislative reforms. Sierra Leone, His Excellency was one of the most pilloried. He was one of the most vilified. He was one of the most castigated, particularly on professional sections of the media. But when he campaigned, he promised to repeal a 55-year-old criminal libel law. And he has done that, right? He was the most unlikely person to have done it. But because he believes the media has a key and critical role to play in national development, he repealed the criminal libel law, joined Sierra Leone to the Global Media Freedom Coalition, and has launched an official subvention payment to the Sierra Leone Association of Journalists. Very recently, we held a media investment and viability conference that is set to attract global attention. So the Sierra Leone media will be funded, will be made more viable. It's now free than ever before. So this is to our credit, to his credit. Again, we have had a death penalty on our law books since the start of times. You know, we inherited it from the colonial masters. President Bio made bold, he was audacious to have removed the death penalty from our law books, to the consternation of all. Because African governments hardly do that, not even with all of the pressure around the world. But he did it on his own volition because he believes that government should not participate in killing their own citizens, no matter for what kind of crimes, right? Come to the economy. Even though we inherited an economy that was in austerity, I mean, even by the admission of the previous government, the IMF and other international development partners had withdrawn support from Sierra Leone because they were not sure about the anti-corruption records, about the judicious expenditure of resources given to that government. When we came in the record 3 months, we were able to rekindle the trust and confidence of the international financial partnership community. They have continued to support one program after the other that we have. They have continued to support us every inch of the way.
Honourable Minister, are you there?
Yes, I'm still here. Okay. I'm just trying to log off this call.
Okay, sir.
Sorry for that disruption.
No, it's...
Yes, so yes. We have continued to do this, right? To an extent, when we took over, you had arrears, a lot of salary arrears. Today, we are very current with payment of salaries. We have increased salaries for teachers, for public sector workers, for the security sector, and for literally every sector that works for government. This is incredible. I mean, considering the current global economic crisis, right?
Yes.
We have also been able to I mentioned the reforms we have done in the information communication sector. When we took up in 2017, going by the records, you had about 400,000 people participating on various global platforms. Today, we are proud that because of the bold, audacious reforms we have introduced in the information and communication sector, you now have about 1.3 million Sierra-Leoneans participating on various social platforms.
Now, Honorable Minister, if I may come in here, all these laudable initiatives should make Sierra Leone an attractive destination for investors. So, Honorable Minister, if I'm an investor and I'm looking seriously at Sierra Leone, what will be your elevator pitch to illustrate that Sierra Leone is a great investment destination? What would you tell me?
Well, I would say, for a fact, Sierra Leone is the fourth most peaceful country in the sub-Saharan African region. We rank 46 on the Global Press Freedom Index. We have vast arable land, pristine sand beaches, very friendly and lovely people, and we have enabling legislation out here, strict anti-corruption practices, to an extent that we have continued to pass successive anti-corruption scores on various international indexes. We have a judiciary, we have a fast-track court, so in case investors have problems with whoever, they can go to the fast-track commercial courts. We have a youthful population that is educated and willing to learn. So there are many things.
Quite a lot going for Sierra Leone. Now, Honourable Minister, before I let you go, before we end this conversation, you did mention that Sierra Leone is the fourth most peaceful country in the sub-Saharan region. And I also recall talking to the Commissioner of the Anti-Corruption Commissioner of the Republic of Sierra Leone, Francis Benkei-Fala, and he highlighted the achievements of Sierra Leone in dealing with corruption. So my final question to you is this: what lessons can Africa learn from Sierra Leone's battle against corruption and also religious harmony? You have quite a huge population of Muslims and Christians, and you never hear about religious strife or people fighting in Sierra Leone. What lessons can we learn can the rest of Africa learn from that?
Well, we have selling credentials in areas of religious tolerance, and this has been demonstrated over the years by successive leaders. They have epitomized that. Late former President Kaba was an ardent Muslim. He had a Christian wife. President Julius Maada Bio is an ardent and devout Christian. He has a Muslim wife. Yours truly here is also a Muslim. My wife is Christian. We, across the board, across the aisle, religion is not one of those things that divide us. Because His Excellency always says there are a lot more things that unite us as a nation than those that threaten to divide us, right? So we believe that countries that demonstrate religious intolerance, fundamentalism, and others have a lesson or two to learn from Sierra Leone, right? So coming to the anti-corruption bit, this has been led by the leadership. His Excellency, during the campaign, as retired Brigadier Julius Maada Bio noted that corruption was hemorrhaging the country. Corruption was the reason why kids go to school and sit on the bare floor. Corruption, he said, was the reason why women die in childbirth for want of appropriate healthcare delivery.
Honourable Minister, I'm sorry I'll have to interrupt you there because we're fast run out of time. I look forward to having a part two, hopefully in the next few months or before election season starts next year. I would like to say a very big thank you to you, Honourable Mohamed Rahman Swaray, the Honourable Minister of Information and Communications of the Republic of Sierra Leone. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you today, a News Central exclusive. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. The pleasure has been mutual. Look forward to part two.
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah.
And that's it on NC Exclusive. My guest has been the Honourable Minister of Communications and Information at the Republic of Sierra Leone, Honourable Swaray, and I'm Gbenga Aborowa. See you next time on NC Exclusive. Bye-bye.